Hello again, class, and welcome to our video review of pages 78 to 82 in Writing Logically, Thinking Critically. And I feel as though these pages directly relate to the draft of essay number 2. And as you're constructing your body paragraphs and you're explaining your premises, right, make sure that you incorporate the strategies that writing logically, thinking critically suggests as you develop um, your essay with rhetoric in mind, right? The art of persuading or convincing, using language to good effect. We've already discussed on what your intro paragraph should do, right? Your body paragraphs should focus on the elements of fiction or the elements of poetry, and they should start with a topic sentence that lets the reader know which element or elements that paragraph is going to analyze to explicate the poem and prove the thesis. Just as with essay one, and the same with future essays, make sure your body paragraphs start with a topic sentence, right? That lets the reader know which uh, topic, which element of fiction or poetry you're going to focus on. Then, a well developed body paragraph is a bare minimum of 7 to 10 sentences, right? Make sure you have facts, make sure you have examples, make sure you have details, make sure you have explanations, and make sure you have quotes. And when you quote, you cite those quotes, right? And then you explain them. You should have at least one quote from your primary source, the poem, in each body paragraph. And then make sure throughout the essay you quote from each of your secondary sources at least once. Remember, set your quotes up correctly, follow the rules of punctuation, follow the rules of MLA format for citation. In the parentheses, right, before the period of the sentence, right, put the author's last name and either the page number of the citation or the paragraph number of the citation, right, if it's one of your secondary sources. And when you're citing the poem, remember, we cite by line number. In reading and writing about literature, on pages 50 to 52, they give examples of how to quote from stories, how to quote from poems, and how to quote from plays. Please review those pages and make sure you cite from the poem correctly. Now, your conclusion. When you bring it all together, page 78 in Writing Logically, Thinking Critically gives you some good advice for the conclusion and how you should structure it. What I always like to tell students is to remember the 3 R's. Repeat your point, review your support, and reflect on the theme or themes and let the reader know how it relates to the human experience. Remember, when we read literature, we learn about life. So, what is the focal point of your essay with regard to the human experience? Reflect back on the theme or themes you've examined and the point that you've made about those theme or themes by analyzing the poem to make a bigger point about life or culture or society. Right? Remember, when we read literature, we learn about life. When we write about literature, right, we learn about ourselves. So essentially, bringing in your own personal perspective as part of that reflection in the conclusion is essential. Repeat the point, review the support, and reflect on the issue or theme or themes that you focused on in the essay to make a point about the human experience. Now, on page 78, the dialectic is the art of arriving at the truth by disclosing the views contrary to your own and overcoming them. Very rarely in life are people 100% right 100% of the time. And as we know with literature, we're all not going to agree on what we feel an interpretation of a story, poem, or play is. Just like we might not all agree on what our interpretation of a movie or a song or an advertisement is. So when you look at both sides of something, you appear fair, and you demonstrate that as a critical thinker, you're examining multiple world views. So on page 79, after introducing to you what the dialectic is, they give us reasons why we should address the counterargument. So again, you don't necessarily just have to get sources that support your claim about the poem and the issue. You can get sources that have counterarguments, and you can engage in the dialectic. Why? Number one, page 79, by anticipating your reasoning, right? You can demonstrate that you understand, by anticipating your opponent's reasoning, you demonstrate that you understand multiple positions and that you're a critical thinker, and that's an effective way, right, to let the reader know that you're open to different worldviews. When you also address the counter argument, as it says on number 2, page 79, right, you can make your own position stronger. Right? You demonstrate that you're fair and you address the counter argument, and then you can refute it and offer concessions. Now, when you offer the concession, right, that's your way of demonstrating Rogerian strategy, right? So the counter argument, it's important to address, right? And on pages 79 onto page 80, they give you 5 reasons why. Right? The first one is to show that you're open to other worldviews. Second is to make your own position stronger by refuting. Right? The third is demonstrates that you're reasonable and you have empathy, Rogerian strategy. Right? The fourth, you demonstrate that you're a knowledgeable, generous thinker, that you're open to worldviews. Right? And 5, you can even discover weaknesses or contradictions in your own writing. So make sure you engage in the dialectic, right? Make sure you're addressing the counter arguments. Make sure you're refuting them to make your own position stronger with evidence from the text. And make sure you're offering concessions. A concession is when you recognize the merit of a counter argument and you concede a point. Concessions are very important to demonstrate that you are open to different worldviews and that you're a knowledgeable critical thinker. When you demonstrate a concession, you're engaging in Rogerian strategy, right? You're showing empathy, the ability, in Roger's words, to see the expressed idea and attitude from the other person's point of view, as clearly stated on page 81. So, hopefully, everybody has found the reading to be helpful, right? As you develop your analysis of the poem, as you explicate the poem, and as you demonstrate that you can engage in the dialectic when writing about literature. For the first essay, if you said that Mrs. Mallard died of an ironic joy, you're looking at the story from a different perspective because the story says she dies of joy. So upon first reading it, one might think the joy is literal. But if you wrote about it from an ironic standpoint or a symbolic standpoint or a metaphorical standpoint, you looked at different perspectives. You engaged in the dialectic. It helps to develop your arguments. So hopefully this review was helpful, and make sure that you continue to engage in the dialectic in all of your essays that you write, specifically using concessions and Rogerian strategy. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you for your patience, and until next time.